Hi guys, my name is Tatiana. In this video I want to share with you why I decided to return Canon M50. So now we are going to talk about pros and cons of this camera. First of all, I've purchased this camera as a second camera. I do have a DSLR and I'm used to DSLRs mainly. I've never had a compact camera. Only when I was a child I used a fully automatic film camera, compact camera. So I am coming from a perspective of a professional photographer looking for a compact camera for vlogging. I don't do photography anymore. I started doing vlogging about a year ago and now I'm really into it. And when I bought Canon M50, I did research and I compared it to some other cameras through reviews on YouTube. Big thanks to you guys who do those reviews. I watched a lot of them and I've learned a lot through your reviews. But basically, after comparing Canon M50 to other cameras, I chose it for a few various reasons. So first of all, what I liked about this camera is that it can be connected to the Canon system, and that is the flash and Canon lenses. Now, I didn't buy the adapter because I didn't want to invest right away in ND filters, and the adapter actually is quite expensive. As far as I know, it's over $300, which is not the budget I want to spend right now. And but my goal was to put my Canon 1.4 lens, 50mm, and that is a great portrait lens which I use a lot, and that's in general my favorite Canon lens among the ones which I've used. So these were two main reasons why I decided to purchase this camera versus Sony or Fuji or any other camera. Now, here are the things which I liked about this camera. So first of all, it's a good build-up. So I would say that it's kind of like a compromised version of the camera. So it's fairly compact, but it still feels solid enough. I would say that the grip is very comfortable to me with my hands. Overall, let's say that the size of the lens is okay. But there were a few things which started annoying me right away, like on the first day. And I've used it a little bit on my vacation. I was very careful with it. I mainly was shooting in Mexico on my phone, just for the convenience. And I just also realized that I might actually return this camera. So anyways, here are the main reasons why I decided to return this camera. Now, even though the build-up of the camera is quite solid and it's very nice, it's still fairly heavy. So you need a separate bag for it. And I mean, people who do vlogging on mirrorless camera probably were aware of that. But when I was buying, I kind of had in my mind a little bit lighter and more compact camera with manual features, which probably is unrealistic. But overall, it's okay to carry if you have a separate bag, and I wouldn't recommend the bag which I got in the kit. I'll show you in a second. So actually, I hope that the cord, I don't know if there is a sound of the mic cord touching the reflector here. Hopefully it's bearable. The camera came as a kit on sale on a Black Friday offer, and it included a small card which I didn't start, and also this bag. Though this bag I didn't even use because I kind of thought, like, in case I decide to return it, I don't want the bag to be used. So I wanted to preserve as much as possible things new. So why I don't like this bag? It's very cute, but it doesn't have a zipper, and it's very easily, like, rain or something can easily get into that. And also when you get it on shoulder, like I tried a little bit just like weighing it here, and when there is camera inside, it's super easy to have it open. Like, it can open on its own very easily, and then the camera can drop out. So you never want to have it there. So I would say if you get this camera in a kit, use it rather for some accessories or maybe even for some necessities for you, just as a regular pouch, because it doesn't feel reliable to me. There's no clip, there's no zipper. Don't like photo bags like that. So anyways, so now back to the camera. So the number one thing which I didn't like was this thing on the lens. It's kind of like a lock. I do prefer to have a lock, especially to be able to lock the lens in a wider position when you do overhead shots. this lens doesn't fall down, so as my DSLR lens, for example, it just falls down really fast unless you lock it. This lens doesn't fall down on its own, so when you open it, it actually doesn't move anyhow, so you have to use this button to make it move. I don't know why it just got on my nerves in terms of I kept forgetting to do that, and so I guess with time you can easily get used to that. That's probably not a huge deal for people who want to use this camera. But for me, I prefer to have just a classic lock, locking ideally at any position, even if it's not the widest angle. Maybe it's too much to ask from the manufacturer, but that's what I would like. So, actually I just noticed a red dot here. I have no idea what it means. I'm curious. Anyways, keep in mind before you use this camera, you need to unlock the zoom lens to use this camera. Also, to stop using it, you have to kind of get it back and it drives itself in, and that means the camera is kind of in a safer position as it was before, like it doesn't stick out. The lens doesn't stick out. There is a manual control here, so you can use it. It's a little bit too fast, so meaning that it adjusts itself a little. I would probably want to have it a little bit slower, but it's a handy feature to have. So now the zoom itself, if you need a wide zoom, you wouldn't get it. It's just a little bit of zooming. So 15 to 45 millimeter zoom, it does give you some leverage, but not like a huge range if you want to shoot photography, for example. The viewfinder is not really that helpful, so it's super tiny, like I mean, my eyes get tired from it, so I didn't use it as much when I was testing this camera. You can adjust though the diopters a bit, and it was a little bit difficult to find. It's actually in the back here, so in case you need that. I mean, it's a handy feature to have in general, especially if by any reason the screen stops working. Hopefully not. Now, reason number 3 is, if we count number 2 viewfinder, but it's not such a big deal. But anyways, the next reason, it's so tricky in terms of setting exposure. Like, there are tons of settings. Don't get me wrong, like they did try to make this wheel with different positions, but especially switching between photography and video, I try to use, for photography I often use aperture priority or manual. For video I use usually either manual or shutter speed priority. At times when I would fix it in a certain position, it would jump back to auto or just switch the position. I cannot show you now because I didn't record it how it was happening, but you know, like my conclusion with this camera is that you have to really learn the settings. So I would even suggest before buying it, go and download their manual controls or watch a ton of videos on YouTube how to use this camera, tips for using this camera, and feel it before you actually buy, because maybe it's not even how you want the camera to be. And so like I realized for me it's a little bit too complicated. To set an exposure, you can use different modes, but also lots of controls are on the menu, like on the touch screen. And I'm not used so much to touch screens, and I'd rather prefer to have an extra wheel here, for example, for some setting like ISO or something else, rather than have everything on the screen, even though it's handy. Don't get me wrong, it's handy. So here the wheel is super tiny, and oh, you see, it tells you to push the lens. I don't know if you can see. Hold the lens to switch direction because I pressed by accident shutter speed. Okay, I don't want that. I'm not sure how to take it away. Well, let's push the lens. I think it's just me probably who didn't figure out how to use it properly, but what I'm saying is that it felt different from a DSLR, and it's kind of like a learning curve to learn to use this camera. Now, another reason what I want to list is that I did not like the picture as much as I was hoping to. For example, I'm used to shoot with my phone just because it's so convenient. It's Samsung S8, it's just a regular smartphone. It's not the best, but it's not the worst, like it's a decent phone. I was impressed with Samsung's pictures in Mexico when I took some. Yes, maybe you wouldn't blow them up like as professional photography, but for vlogging and for quick shots on social media it was enough, and I liked the picture more than on this camera. I wish I did more tests. I wish I did more tests there comparing photos in the same setting. It's just like, basically, I was carrying this camera in Mexico and it was so much work to take it out and in and with the mic and everything, and I just gave up because I like the sound, internal sound on my Samsung S8 better than on this camera, and I wasn't using external mic a lot just because it was too much of a hassle. And also where I was in Mexico, Nayarit, Guayabitos and area around, people do not vlog a lot, and so it kind of looks weird when someone is or was with the mic all the time. Like, I attracted too much attention, which I didn't want. So most of the times I ended up using just my phone, even though it would be great to have some ND filter in the phone to shoot in bright conditions. And in this camera there's no internal ND filter as far as I know. You have to buy external ND filters, so it didn't make such a huge difference. I shot a few videos and I shot a few photos, and I like my Samsung quality more for some reason. It's very subjective. I'm not affiliated with Samsung anyhow, and I guess even it's not the phone which people would buy now, because there are versions which are more contemporary. I don't know much about them yet. I spent over 1,000 to buy this camera with taxes and also insurance, and it's kind of like a big lump of money to me. I cannot afford buying a camera each year for that amount of money, so it's a big decision to me. Now, another reason, like I already probably mentioned, is that I wish there were more manual controls on the camera. So this wheel feels to me very flimsy. And actually, speaking about the buttons also, my hands are not huge, and there is the button which you use for video recording here, and it's so tiny. Like, I mean, now I'm a little bit more used. So I've seen, I forgot which camera was it, some other camera also with a tiny button, and that felt better because there was a feel to that. So it wasn't flat, it wasn't positioned flat even with the body of the camera, but it was kind of like a touch, like I could feel that I'm touching this button. But at first I actually missed a few great shots just because I couldn't find the button of this camera very fast. I mean, if you look at it, you will see it, but I hate that you can't really feel it. I mean, maybe there is a way to switch it to this position, in Mexico, I tried to look quickly. I didn't have my manual, but I tried to look quickly for settings, and for some reason I didn't find it, how to switch it to custom, like to have it on this shutter speed, which would be more logical to me. Anyway, so that's a big drawback to me personally. So okay, so now I'm testing this camera handheld, and as you can see, it's kind of like it has this image which is quite contrasty, and I haven't changed settings, so I use it as is. It's yeah, I can focus on the face. Actually, I cannot, it doesn't allow you. Now I'm shooting in manual mode. Actually, let me check. Now I'm recording. Okay, so now I'm recording in the aperture priority mode, and the thing is, what's been happening is that it kind of blacks out when you start shooting. So sorry, I forgot where I'm looking. So what was happening is that I started shooting in aperture priority mode because I couldn't manage to shoot in camera mode. It just wasn't allowing me to choose the right settings, and it keeps blacking out. I am not sure why. So maybe there is a limit of how long a video can be, how many seconds in this format. So now I'm shooting in shutter speed priority 1/60th. For some reason I stopped seeing all the information on the screen, which I prefer to see to double check that things are okay. So my impression is that with this camera you just have to really learn the settings, and you need to be very, very fluent with them, because there are lots of them and you need to change some things once in a while, and it's really a big advantage if you know how to do that. Because I was hoping to learn how to use it just intuitively on the fly, because I'm used to Canon systems, and it didn't really work well because it's quite different from a DSLR. So anyways, so now for comparison, I'm shooting from my phone, Samsung S8, and I'm shooting handheld just because it's faster and less setup, and I can switch them without losing the lighting because it changes quite fast in my apartment. And this is how a Samsung picture looks if I shoot in the same conditions. As you can see, it's different from the other cameras, and I kind of prefer this look, to be honest. It's just that I'm running out of space all the time on my phone, so I don't shoot it as much on it yet. Whereas if you're shooting with a DSLR or a compact camera, you can easily switch the cards, and that's just enough to have more space. So that's for me the current drawback of shooting with the phone. By the way, I keep the native sound of the device which I use so that we can compare that as well. And there's airplane right now, I don't know if you can hear that. So that's the look, and I do like this look, and it's convenient. You can use a selfie stick or you can use a mini tripod if you are shooting at home, for example, to put it on a table. And here, just for comparison, I'm also shooting through Open Camera app on my phone, and as you see that the angle is wider. I didn't have exposure compensation here as well. So that's how it looks. So it gives you a little bit wider picture in case you need that. Sometimes, depending on what I was shooting for my vlog, I liked more the image coming right from the camera app on Samsung S8, and sometimes I would use Open Camera, especially when I need to boost a little bit in terms of exposure when it gets darker. So I can shoot on this one, or if I need a wider angle, is like here. It's quite strange. I don't understand how this app, why would it give a wider angle, whereas the other camera, and this is how we call it, front-facing camera. Yeah, so that's the image. And now I'm shooting in the same conditions with my DSLR Canon 70D. And I love this camera, actually. I'm not handhelding it because it's set on a tripod, it's just too heavy to hold it in the hands. Let's say if I put it closer to my hands, that would look like this. So this would be the angle. It's super heavy, I cannot do that. So okay, so now since I changed the position a little bit, I already sort of have to change the focus. So because it's set on manual focus, I don't like this sound when the zoom lens does while the camera is focusing, so I usually switch the focus to manual once I set the focus. And what I do is that I do small, I put small stickers on the wheel and on the filter of the lens so that I can even them up in the position which I want. It's just a small trick if you guys are using the same camera. So as we can see that the pictures do differ and sound differs as well. I kept my balcony by chance open a little bit, so you probably also hear noise from the street on all of those devices. So let's compare what you like more in terms of picture. Now this is the sound with Boya Lav mic. It's a very simple lavalier mic which I use usually. So that's my comparison between different cameras in terms of picture and sound in the same lighting conditions. While I was shooting though, the light changed a little bit, so I've got some shadows in the back there. And that's the challenge of working in available light conditions. So I'm using currently just 2 reflectors, actually 3 reflectors. I use one big reflector here. It's a little bit in front of me and on the side, so that it reflects this light from the window. And also there are 2 small reflectors which I do from cardboard for framing or for pastel painting, and so they are from the front here. Okay, so that's my setup, and the light comes from the window mainly on my front side. I don't think I was in focus. So this is my review of Canon M50 and the reasons which brought me to the decision to return this camera. Maybe I'm expecting too much from a mirrorless camera. I will keep looking and hopefully I'll find the camera which I will love. Now, if I buy such an expensive camera, I do want it to serve for a few years, and nowadays things change so fast. I personally haven't tried 4K format, and I haven't tried it with flash. Maybe it would make me decide more towards it, but because I don't have a 4K screen yet and my computer is not as powerful, so it's not something which I was looking into when buying this camera. Yeah, that's it. So I feel bad returning the camera because I don't return equipment. If I buy it, I buy it. So, but that's my decision. Maybe I'll change my mind later. Maybe if there is an upgrade coming up, I'll get this camera. But for now, I decided that it's not what I want. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. Do mention in the comments your impressions and tips. And if you were comparing this camera to other cameras, you can mention what made you decide whether towards this camera or another camera. Do subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. I'm trying to decide right now what to post on this channel. Maybe it's too early to invite you to subscribe because I'm kind of experimenting with some material. Even if this channel might not be a tech channel necessarily, but once in a while I want to post some tech reviews of my impressions of equipment which I use for vlogging and photography, and I'll use this account to do that. Alright, I'll see you in another video.